Hello everyone, and welcome to the Eclipse Stories. Now, I know a lot of you use these videos to sleep. So, before you drift off, I thought it would be a fun idea if everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world. Also like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Right, let's get comfy and relax and let's begin. Story 1. Voices in the Dark. Without getting too deep into backstory or disclosing too much personal information about myself, I'll just come right out and say that I've always been a reclusive person ever since I was a young kid. I didn't have many friends at all, and I spent most of my time playing video games on the computer or various consoles I grew up with. As I got older, like in high school, I started getting into taking long walks and exploring. I'd walk through the woods, walk through cemeteries, and then I developed an obsession with trespassing, going places I wasn't supposed to be. It started with sneaking into cemeteries at night. Then I started getting more experimental with it, like exploring abandoned hospitals and schools. When I was finally able to drive, it made accessing all these places much easier. Of course, I only went with one of my few friends once or twice. Honestly, I enjoyed it more by myself. Part of my weirdness includes the fact that I don't get scared exploring abandoned places at night by myself. Or perhaps I should use past tense and say I didn't used to get scared. How I used to find a lot of abandoned structures was simpler than you might think. I would just go on Google Earth and zoom into rural areas. Then I would look for abandoned-looking structures in unsuspecting places. I would then make a list of 5 to 10 locations of these structures and try to visit them all in one day. Sometimes they wouldn't be abandoned at all. But I eventually got pretty good at gauging which ones would be. This hobby involved a lot of walking through woods. And yes, before you ask, I did have a job. I worked a minimum wage job as a stock boy at a supermarket. So when I wasn't doing that or in school, a lot of my time was spent doing this. One of the places on my list one day turned out to be an abandoned little church. I had to park on a dirt road and get out of my car to walk. It was about a 10-minute walk. I'd always wear jeans and boots so that I could travel faster through the woods without hurting myself. I started noticing old rusted garbage cans and other junk scattered in the woods, indicating I must have been close. And then I saw the clearing in the distance approaching, along with the structure. And there it was, some dilapidated old church, sitting in a random clearing in the woods. It had an old well right in front of the building. I walked over to it to see if it had been sealed, but surprisingly it hadn't been. I looked down, and it was so deep that it was pitch black down there. When I stopped and listened though, I heard something down there. It was a faint clicking sound. It happened in a rhythm, one click after 2 seconds. It didn't sound like water droplets. The best I could describe it was a stick being tapped on a stone wall. Curious, I stared down for longer than I probably should have, kind of like I was hypnotized by the sound. But eventually, I broke out of my daze and decided to go inside the church. I stepped onto the creaking wood porch, and the rotted boards gave slightly under my weight. The large double doors were ajar, not surprising. Out of all the abandoned structures I'd visited, unless it was a very well-known one posted frequently on subreddits, there wouldn't really be anyone boarding these places up. I pushed one door open further, which led to a loud groan that echoed through the trees. The air inside was thick with dust and the scent of old wood. Light poured through the shattered stained glass windows. Some of the pews were overturned or missing entirely. The pulpit stood crooked at the front, and behind it, an arched doorway led further into darkness. I did the usual, scanned the inside with my flashlight and took a few pictures for my archive on my digital camera. There was an eerie beauty to the decay, a holy place like a church near ruin. It was beautiful, but tragic. I walked slowly toward the back of the church where the arched doorway was. I stepped through it and found a narrow hallway that led to what looked like old storage rooms. One door was missing entirely, and the others were splintered or hanging off their hinges. Cobwebs clung to the ceiling everywhere. And then I saw that at the end of the hallway was a stairway leading down into the basement. Jackpot, I thought. Like I said, I used to not let anything scare me, nothing within reason at least. Something about exploring abandoned basements excited me, but this time, something about that basement door hanging open, leading to the darkness below, made me pause. I, honest to God, got a slight chill, but I kept going. I started down the stairs slowly, and each step creaked so loud that I feared I'd fall through the wood. And then I counted 7 steps until my right foot landed on one that gave way with a loud crack. Before I could react, it collapsed under me. I fell hard and landed in a pile of junk and dirt below the stairs. I fell directly on my ass and hurt my tailbone. I let out some kind of audible complaint, probably a "goddamn it" or something. My flashlight flew out of my hand, so I crawled over to grab it. That was when I heard a voice. It was a higher-pitched sounding voice, either a woman or a young boy. It was saying words, but I couldn't understand any of them except for one thing. They said hello. The rest was gibberish, like someone trying to talk but didn't know how. I stood up and pointed the flashlight around. It was just an old basement, some busted furniture, mostly boxes, a dirt floor, stone walls, but then I saw a tunnel in the wall. It looked like it had been dug out by hand. As I approached it, I realized the voice was coming from down there. I started walking toward it. I was being dumb, but I had to know what it was. I stepped just a couple of steps inside the tunnel and looked around. The walls were rough, not smooth. It had definitely been dug out with a shovel by hand. My flashlight started flickering, and I nearly had a heart attack. I hit it a few times, and it stayed on. Doing so made a louder noise than I anticipated. Though the voice got louder still, just gibberish with that same weird tone, but I could now confirm it was coming from deeper inside this tunnel. And then it stopped. Everything was quiet for a few seconds. Then I heard a click. 2 seconds later, another click. Same rhythm and sound as the well, and the sound echoed. These clicks and the gibberish echoing voice were getting louder. My heart was now in my throat, so I turned and ran back. I reached the stairs and remembered one of the steps was broken. I found it easier to grab the sides of the stairs and pull myself up instead of trying to hop over the broken step. My flashlight dropped, but it didn't matter. I was leaving the basement, back to the light of the upstairs. I got to the top and didn't look back. I ran through the hallway, through the main room, and out the front doors. I ran past the well and stopped for a second. The clicking sound was gone. There was no noise at all. Come to think of it, it was dead silence. I didn't even hear any birds. I looked down the well one more time, still pitch blackness. With that, I turned and ran through the woods, making it to my car much faster than I had made it to the church. Albeit completely out of breath. I cut the day short and didn't explore the other places on my list. This was just one of those experiences where you don't know what to think, and you just drive home in silence with the music off. I didn't give up my hobby of exploring entirely, but I took a break. I was admittedly very spooked. I hope it was just some other kids exploring in there. trying to mess with people, but I don't know. When I think about it, that sounds really unlikely.
If you're getting hooked by this spine-chilling tale and want more terrifying stories, make sure to subscribe and smash that like button. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from if you dare. Story 2. The Faceless Man *. This happened to me a while ago and is still stuck in my mind. My friends and I often like to be outdoors. I'll refer to my friends as Derek and Tyler. We were bored and decided to go fishing deep in the woods near some farmland. We were chased out by a farmer and his dog. We tried to hide, but his dog found us, and he threatened to call the police, even though he was already on the phone with his friend, which we found weird. Honestly, we kind of found it funny, so for whatever reason, we thought it would be a good idea to go back the next day and sneak onto the property to explore it. It was nearing about an hour before dark, and this property was huge acres upon acres. We had to hike through some deep woods similar to the ones we had been fishing in before. Although we scoped it out on Google Maps, it was still easy to get lost. I remember thinking to myself that we should be out of there before dark. At first, everything seemed normal, and I wasn't getting any bad gut feelings. We were admiring the horses and petting them. I remember thinking it was weird having all this farmland and only horses. I compared it in my head to my uncle's farm, which is a lot smaller but has about 10 different types of animals, not just one. I just brushed it off and thought that maybe the owner specialized in horses. After walking through the woods, we reached the fence bordering the property. Derek was leading the way, I was in the middle, and Tyler was behind us. This is when we stumbled upon a rundown house with multiple trophy cars and a broken-down RV. We were shocked at the discovery and snuck around some of the cars. There was also a very creepy rundown shed. It was crazy to see. There were multiple Porsches, Range Rovers, Ford Raptors, Bentley sports cars, Corvettes, and Ferraris. The deeper we got, and the more cars we saw, we realized we probably shouldn't be seeing this, since some of the cars were parted out. We suspected it was probably a criminal ring stealing cars. After we had seen all the cars, Derek decided it was a good idea to explore the inside of the camper. While Tyler kept lookout, I held the door open for Derek, since he's kind of the smallest, so I thought he would be best suited to explore it. There was evidence somebody was living there: fishing rods, fresh food, bedding, and other stuff. Although the camper was run down, we understood it was somebody's home, so we got out of there. I forgot to mention there were also car tires inside. We were not there to break or destroy anything, just look around. We snuck around to the back of the property where all the cars were. There were side-by-sides, and we made the connection that they were probably used to run the property. There was also a rundown shed, and when we went inside the back of it, we caught a foul, horrible smell. We kind of just brushed it off and laughed, joking that maybe it could be a body. None of us really believed it though. Then we heard the gate at the entrance of the property open and slam. It was about 1,000 feet away. We were heading back to the woodline because we didn't want anyone to see us. And that's when a van turned onto the street we were on. It was nearing dusk and the headlights were on. So we sprinted through the woods, not sure if he saw us. This is when we probably should have left, but we decided to explore the other side of the property. After walking along the outskirts and hiking through more woods, there were a lot more horses, but we finally got to the main house of the property. Again, it seemed very run down. About 25 feet to the right was another camper, or at least what looked like a camper. It was massive, about 50 feet long and probably hadn't moved in 50 years. We almost missed it because it was completely covered in vines. Right next to it was another rundown jet ski, also covered in vines. We managed to get the door open, but didn't want to make too much noise since we were so close to the main house. Even though it seemed abandoned, we wanted to be cautious. Not just because we were trespassing, but because there was similar suspicious stuff on both ends of the property, which I could only assume was connected to the car stealing ring. I knew if we were caught, it would be a problem. We snuck around the house and saw what was probably the most luxurious car on the property. Although it was run down and old, it was still an amazing sports car, a Ferrari. I didn't get a picture or video since we were still near the main house and the horses were making a lot of noise. We got sketched out on the far end of the property. There was a boat and a cooler inside a freezer. Derek looked around the boat, and the cooler was about 15 feet into some very thick vegetation. We joked about the probability of a body being in there. At this point, the mood was still kind of jokey because we were exploring something we weren't supposed to see. When we got closer to the freezer, another terrible smell came, like the smell of death and rot. We decided to back off, assuming the worst, and didn't want to open it in case there was something we really didn't want to see in there. We got a bad vibe, and we were on our way back when Tyler started hearing things. We paused and listened with him, and we heard the noises. 2. I can't really describe them. I don't know if they were just normal wood noises, or if everything just seemed amplified because we were paranoid. The vegetation was about head high, and there was a rock that each of us took turns standing onto. Get a better view of the property. When Derek went up there, we were still laughing and joking. Then he turned to us, looking like he had just seen a ghost. He wouldn't speak, so I decided to get on the rock and look for myself. What I saw is seared into my brain. Over the vegetation, I saw a man sitting at a table with a black cat. That wasn't the scary part. When I looked at his face, there was no hair, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, no facial features at all. You can call me crazy, but I know what I saw. We were about 50 feet away, and it felt like the man was staring at us, but we genuinely couldn't see his eyes since he had no features. There was also a woman with him who made direct eye contact with me, and that was the moment she started running in a direction to cut us off from the property. I don't know if the man's featureless face was real, or if he had white medical tape or bandages covering it. I still can't decide, but his face was pure white and his head was very small. I still can't get it out of my head. After that, it was getting dark, and we had a long hike through the woods to get back to where we came from. We felt as if we were being followed almost the whole way, and we almost took a route that was 2 miles out just to get away. There were weird noises like stomping feet, galloping, and screams. We tried to be quiet through the woods, but also tried to move quickly. We ended up making it back and made sure we weren't followed. I genuinely still don't know what that was or if it was human, but I can't get this experience out of my head, and I know none of us will ever go back.